Which small groups do we got tonight? We got Mark and Tina's group is here. We're going to have a group in here. Mark and Tina will be in the education wing. Is that right, Tina? Education wing. And where were you guys at? Other Sunday school? Yeah, because I don't know if there's enough for all of us, or all of you. So, and then we'll have another group in here. Jolene and Francis's group. You can spread out, right? Where's Jolene and Francis? There they are. You can either spread out, because Jolene was out partying all week and didn't get a chance to do any study. See, you didn't know I'd throw you under the bus because of all this, did you? We would love to have any of you guys. You could have anybody that doesn't have a group obviously can stay in here with us. The only thing I warn you about is that we have all of our online watchers that join us in that group too. So you just got to be careful what you say. Okay, that's all I'm saying. So I think that is everything we need to know. Tonight is the theme is we are called to resign as master of the board. And basically what that means, as I alluded to a moment ago, is this chapter is all about lordship. It's not that kind of language isn't used a lot in this chapter or in the video, but that's what he's talking about when he talks about recognizing who the master of the board is, or recognizing who's in control. And there's really only one right answer to that, folks. It's Jesus. Problem is, we love to be in control, don't we? All of us do to one degree or another. But learning to let Jesus be Lord is the key to life. So pay close attention. You may hear some things tonight that may change your life. So, Mark, if you're ready, go ahead and start the video.
You know, it's kind of a funny thing. We find ourselves leading cluttered lives. Our days are cluttered, our schedules are cluttered with events, our houses are cluttered with stuff. And it all plays into this kind of an illusion. I could describe it by asking you, what's a 2-year-old's favorite word? And the word mine comes to mind pretty quickly. Right behind it is the word no. Because a 2-year-old thinks they're in charge of stuff. Now, we look at that dynamic, and it's kind of funny to us that a 2-year-old would ever think anything is his or hers. Because we know the truth. Nothing belongs to that 2-year-old. And I sometimes wonder how our sense of control looks to God. Because we think that stuff is ours. We think that our lives are ours. We think that our minds are ours. But the scriptures say that the earth is the Lord and the fullness thereof. Jesus tells the story about this rich fool. And there's a wonderful little detail towards the beginning of it. He says, the ground of a certain man produced a rich crop. He doesn't say, there was once a man who was really clever and figured out how to acquire a lot of stuff. He says, the ground produced a rich crop. And of course, God is the one who made the ground. Everything that man has, like everything you have, everything I have, comes to us from God. It all belongs to God, and I'll be accountable to God for it. But I live in this illusion, I'm in control. I'm smart enough, I'm strong enough, I'm clever enough, I can run my own life. The reality is, I can't even run my own heartbeat. I'll tell you my favorite story about the human condition. There's a man who is upstairs in his bedroom in his home, and he's deathly ill. He's on his deathbed. And he smells, coming from the kitchen, the aroma of freshly baked chocolate chip cookies. One of the great smells in the world. And he says to himself, I gotta have one last chocolate chip cookie before I die. So with his last ounce of strength, he drags himself out of bed. He makes his way across his bedroom floor. He somehow slides all the way downstairs. On his hands and knees and belly, he crawls across the kitchen floor, makes it to the table, and reaches up with a trembling hand for one last chocolate chip cookie. Right at that moment, a spatula whacks him across the arm, and his wife says to him, "Put that back. They're for the funeral." I don't know if you like that one or not, but I love that story because that's the human condition. Jesus tells the story of this man who said to himself, "You have stored up many, many cookies. Now relax, eat, drink, and be merry." And that night, whack, spatula came. To paraphrase John Donne, ask not for whom the spatula whacks. It whacks for you. Because the truth about our condition is, God is the one who is in control. And that means that central to playing the game well is learning to resign as master of the board, to surrender my life, my will to God. And amazingly, one of the things that we find in playing the game in spiritual life is that when we surrender, we actually receive power. We become stronger, not weaker. This is a dynamic that if you're familiar at all with AA or 12-step programs, you know quite well. One of the things that people discover when they run up against a problem, an addiction, that they are not strong enough to handle, is that the only solution is to acknowledge that, to admit that I could not control my drinking or whatever it is anymore, and to turn my mind, my will, over to a higher power, and that higher power is God. And then I receive from God the power to do what I cannot do on my own. Now, this is what Jesus told us that we're to pursue. And a lot of us are familiar with the Lord's Prayer, where He teaches us to pray, "Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be your name." In other words, may people come to understand how wonderful you are. "Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth, in my life, in my body, with my time, with my stuff, as it is in heaven." And I want to tell you, I believe there is also great freedom in surrender. Not just great power, but great freedom. Some time ago, a friend of mine, Dallas Willard, was speaking at our church. And I noticed when he had finished speaking, we were going to another location, he was just shuffling along, singing a hymn with this great sense of serenity and ease. And it struck me how often, when most people I know speak somewhere, or when I do, immediately when it's done, there's all this weight, there's all these questions. Did it go well? If it went good, then I'll feel good about myself. If it went bad, then I'll wonder, am I slipping? And I'll feel bad. But with Dallas, there was this sense of ease. It was like watching a little kid let go of a helium balloon. Because see, if I have surrendered, if I have put God in control, then I can release all outcomes to Him. I want to learn from how things go. But those outcomes are not in my shoulder anymore. I don't have to carry the weight of the world anymore. I can be open to face each day with a sense of wonder, gratitude, freedom, relaxation, and delight. Because God, not me, is now the master of the board. And that's part of what's really good about having time, having a schedule, having a body, having some stuff. It helps us learn to surrender all of that to God. Which reminds me of something that we got to learn together. Come on, let's go for a ride. So let's talk about our stuff, because we all have stuff. We buy stuff, we collect stuff, we dust our stuff off, we sell our stuff, we store our stuff, we pass our stuff along. People go their whole life long and they get all kinds of stuff, and then they die and their kids argue about who's going to get the stuff. George Carlin says our houses are just boxes built around our stuff, and then we keep getting more stuff and we got to get bigger boxes to put it in. We become what Paul Pearsall calls stuffaholics. We get so consumed by our stuff, we can't let go of it. We're not sure after a while if we have our stuff or if our stuff has us. There's a whole industry now. It's called the self-storage industry. In the 1960s, it did not exist. Today, there are over 30,000 storage units that are selling space just because we don't have enough space to keep our stuff. Over 1 billion square feet of space. It's a $12 billion industry, bigger than the music industry. And some people, some of the people we admire the most, are people who are great at getting more stuff. Not real far from here, there's a house. It was built by a guy named William Randolph Hearst. It's actually called Hearst Castle. 72,000 square feet, and Hearst collected stuff from all over the place. Statues from Egypt and paintings from all over Europe. And then built this house, 72,000 square feet on 265,000 acres of land, 50 miles of coastline in California, just to have a place to house all of his stuff. 88 years he collected stuff. And then he did a really foolish thing. Then he died. And now, people go through that house, tens of thousands of people, and they look at all of his stuff and they say, wow, he sure had a lot of stuff. But of course, we don't get to keep any of our stuff, not ultimately. And Jesus actually had quite a few warnings about stuff. He said, be on your guard, for a human's life does not consist in the abundance of their possessions. You can't measure it by the amount of stuff that we have. And after a while, sometimes, if your focus is on collecting a lot of stuff, you find that your heart is wrapped up in all the stuff that you have. And however much stuff you have, you always want more. You always want better. Truth is, you are more than your stuff. Which brings up an interesting question. Do you ever wonder what happens to your stuff? It goes here. All your stuff is going to end up here at a landfill. It used to be called a garbage dump or a junkyard. We don't call it that anymore because it sounds kind of depressing. Landfill sounds better. We like the word land, and fullness is good. But it's a garbage dump all the same. What's striking when you look around a place like this is how there was a time when every object sitting here now was the object of someone's deep desire. People dreamed for it, worked for it, sweat for it, paid for it, and it all ends up here. Whatever it was initially, bicycles, flat screen TVs, sub-zero refrigerators, everything ends up here. They process at this particular landfill 200 tons of stuff every hour. That's like 20 homes worth of stuff that somebody paid for, that somebody wanted. It all ends up here. But not you, but not your soul. See, we are by nature treasuring creatures. We can't help ourselves. It's part of what it means to be human. You look at a little kid and they have treasures. It'll be a blanket maybe, or a stuffed animal. But Jesus said, be really careful what you treasure. He said, don't store up for yourselves treasures on earth, because here's what's going to happen to them. A moth's going to get it. Rust is going to consume it. A thief is going to break in and steal it. It's not going to last, and it cannot satisfy you. We live with this illusion that what we need is more stuff, and that one day more will be enough. You look around at a place like this, and every product here at one time screamed to you and me the same message. You're not content yet, or you shouldn't be, but contentment is just one purchase away. So buy me, use me, try me, touch me, wear me, eat me, put me in your hair, and then you'll be content. But we never are. Between more and enough is a chasm that will never be bridged. And I can prove this with just a single question. Who is more content? The man with $1 million or the man with 12 children? And the correct answer is the man with 12 children, because he doesn't want any more. There's an old movie with Edward G. Robinson and Humphrey Bogart. And Robinson plays this criminal named Johnny Rocco. and he's crazed to acquire, do anything. Somebody asked him at one point, Johnny Rocco, what is it that you want? And he's not a very reflective guy. He's not able to come up with an answer. And Humphrey Bogart looks at him and says, I know what you want. You want more. And his face brightens up. And he says, yeah, that's what I want. I want more. But more will never be enough. There's an interesting statement in the scriptures where Paul talks about the fact that we're to be careful of greed, which is a form of idolatry. Because we are treasuring creatures, we will treasure something. And we were made to treasure God most of all, and then to treasure the people that God loves so much. But we are tempted to treasure stuff. And the reason that's so powerful is that our stuff will become an idol. Now, we don't tend to think about it that way. We don't, for the most part, bow down before idols the way that people used to a few thousand years ago. But our stuff can be what we will allow to create a sense of identity, to create a sense of worth. We will give it our time, we will give it our energy, we will give it our emotions. And that's what it means to have a God. Greed is a kind of idolatry. I think it's very striking that in Jesus' day, the great image for hell, it was called Gehenna, was a garbage dump outside of Jerusalem. And because it was a dump, that's where all of the flies gathered. And there was a title that the Israelites used for the god Baal that eventually became kind of the title for the evil one. And it was called Beelzebub, Lord of the Flies, the god of the garbage dump. And that's the God that we're tempted to worship. Now, we all see this story lived out millions of times every day. He was a very, very wealthy guy. He wanted more pleasure, and so he engineered all kinds of relationships to give him pleasure. He wanted more power, and so he dealt with favors so skillfully that a couple of U.S. presidents became kind of his pawns. He wanted more money. He became about the wealthiest guy in the country. He wanted more fame, so he went to Hollywood and became a major player there. But his life didn't conclude with satisfaction. He ended up with a sunken chest and grotesque inches-long corkscrew fingernails, innumerable needle marks from his drug addictions. Howard Hughes died a billionaire junkie, insane by all reasonable standards. The question you gotta ask yourself is, if he'd have made $1 more million, if he'd have pulled off one more big deal, if he'd have experienced one more big thrill, would it ever have been enough? She was the most adulated of women. Every woman envied her, every man wanted her. She had beauty, fame, wealth, power. But Marilyn Monroe died alone, died at her own hand. The question you gotta ask yourself is, if she'd have been in one more hit movie, if she would have graced one more magazine cover, she would have experienced one more sexual relationship with a powerful man, would it have been enough? If my wife Nancy and I were to have a conversation and agree, and she were to go to the mall, take a credit card for one day of unlimited shopping, buy every pair of shoes, every piece of jewelry, every dress that she wanted, would it be enough? Well, we'll never know. Jesus says, you can walk down that road called more as far as you want to walk it. Just know that people way smarter and stronger and richer than you walk down that road farther than you or I ever will. A guy by the name of Solomon, man of immense wealth and immense power, walked way down that road, and he found it was a cul-de-sac. It did not lead to enough. It just leads to here. We get sucked into this, I think, because there are two kinds of riches. A brilliant theologian at Yale, a guy named Miroslav Volf, talks about this. There is richness of having, to have possessions, to have cars, to have boats, to have money, to have houses, to have clothes. There's richness of having, and then there's richness of being. To be rich in love, to be rich in joy, to be rich in serenity, to be rich in friendship. What every human being wants is richness of being. But our problem is we think that the way to get there is through richness of having. Because when we acquire something, when we possess something, for a few moments, it gives us a little thrill, a little surge of happiness. And the illusion is, if we could just get enough of it, if it could just be big enough or expensive enough, that thrill would last forever. But it never will. It always wears off. It's the nature of stuff. Here's the good news about your stuff, about my stuff. It can, if we will allow it, help us to become rich toward God. Because Jesus put it like this, it is better to give than to receive. When I'm receiving, when I'm clutching, when I'm hoarding, when I'm holding on, it's all gonna die here. But what we give, that lasts forever. What we give is about living in the kingdom. What we give mirrors the heart of God. For the most famous verse in the Bible says that God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, gave the best that he had. And God enables us to be like him, to become givers. It's kind of ironic to me, because I've been involved in the church for a long time, and anytime in the church we talk about tithing, the biggest question that comes up is, do I have to tithe on my net or on my gross? Well, that doesn't quite capture the spirit of the thing. It's not about some rule I'm obligated to observe in order to be okay with God. It is that God's kind of life, kingdom kind of life, is characterized by generosity. Generosity is the best way to live. And I want to grow towards that. To treasure people and to use my stuff to invest in the kingdom of God is just the best. You are a treasurer. That's who you are. Jesus just says, be really careful about what it is that you treasure. Don't store up for yourselves treasure on earth where moth and rust destroy, where thieves can break in and steal. Rather, store up for yourselves treasure in heaven. Because where your treasure is, there your heart's going to be also.
All right, turn to page 40 in your books if you got them. Right at the very top of page 40, the first question says, what do you think we're trying to gain? What do you think human beings are trying to gain? And what benefits do we hope to receive when we seek control of our lives? Is anybody here a control freak? You know what? The fact that some of you had the courage to actually raise your hand, I'm proud of you. Did my wife raise her hand? No. I didn't think so. Oh my gosh. You know, I'm telling you right now, God will strike you dead. All right, what do you think we hope to gain? What benefits do we hope to receive by having control in our lives? Anybody? Just yell it out, whatever you think.
Feed our egos.
Feed our egos,
Be
good.
the best that we can be.
Get to be the best. Oh, see, now that's a very positive way to be a control freak. Good job. To be the best that we can be. And of course,
A Marine.
what'd you say?
Said he must be a Marine.
Why do we think being in control is a good thing?
Keep things in order. Keep it.
Oh, good, because we can keep things in order and better than anybody else, right? Good. What else?
Predictability.
Predictability. Very good. See, that sounds positive too.
We hope to receive awards and everything, awards and whatever.
If God would just let me be in charge, things would go a lot better, right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't like surprises.
Oh.
So if I plan it, then there are no surprises. But if somebody else plans it, then I'm going to be surprised, and I might not like the surprise. You know?
I'm just like that.
You have a better idea of what the outcome is going to be if you are in control of everything.
Yeah, ultimately it comes. So let's try to focus in on the emotions or the feelings associated with all that, because everything you just said is everybody. I mean, that's absolutely the truth. But what are the emotions or the feelings that we're hoping to receive because of all that stuff you just described?
That's probably where my list comes in. I said we're looking for peace, security, acceptance, and love.
Oh, good, very good. If I'm in control of those, I'll get those things, right?
Right. Well,
okay, good. What else?
That's what.
Very good. What are some other things we hope to get because we want to be in control emotionally? I mean.
Maybe satisfaction of a job well done.
Okay, good. Yeah, like that. Respect. Yeah. Good. Excellent. What else?
Whatever happiness is.
Happiness. That's a very good point. But because it's hard to, it's kind of like defining love, right? I mean,
Right.
But we hope to be, if I'm in control, I'm more in control of the possibility of my being happy. Very good. What else?
Recognition.
Recognition, yeah. Good. How about freedom? Do you feel freedom? Do you hope to, if you're in control, do you feel more free?
Well, sometimes because of time, you controlling time. So.
That was one I wrote down, was freedom, and
What do you mean by that? Give an example.
I wasn't necessarily going where Donna was going with that. The freedom, if I'm in control, I'm free to do what I think I want to do.
What about less worried or stressful?
Oh, okay. That's a good one. If you're in control, you'll be less worried. You'll be more content. Huh?
Yeah.
So how's that all going for you?
Now, what Chris just said is that would be just the opposite for me. I would be so stressed out trying to get it the way it's supposed to be. Even if it's my way, I'm still stressed because I'm worried about the outcome.
Because you tend to do what you think will please and honor God in what you're doing versus not thinking about Him.
All right, now I need you to make sure did everybody hear what she just said? She's got her mask on, so say it just a little bit louder, because what you just said right there
is wrong.
No. What you said right there is perfect. Say, or did I just confuse you so much? Okay.
I think that by having a choice, we get to make choices based on our relationship with Christ. If it's a loving relationship, then the choice that we're going to make about whatever is in front of us to make a choice about, if God is first, then what we choose to do will be pleasing and honoring Him. When we don't have that relationship and that love doesn't matter to us, then we're going to do whatever feels good.
So one thing she just described is very self-centered, and the other one is very God-centered. And at least what she just described is that happiness, contentment, satisfaction, freedom comes from being God-centered rather than self-centered. Now, most people don't, I mean, we're sitting in Bible study and we're all going, oh, isn't that nice? Remember, I didn't grow up going to church. I still have a very non-churched mentality. I'm telling you right now. I know how religious people work and I know how non-religious people work. And I know how all of us really think. And most of us think, oh, that's such a sweet thing. And that's probably the truth. But I want what I want, right? Go ahead.
When we talk about making choices, if we're God-centered, then we make the right choices. But I think we have to remember that Nobody's perfect.
No.
Amen. That's why we need Jesus, right?
Yeah, and that's why we make mistakes, and we can't be this perfect person all the time.
Never. I'm not professing to be.
No.
Yes, you are. No, you're the most perfect person I know. What did you say, Chris?
Maybe it's obedience. You know, when we want to be in control of our kids or the outcome at work or what we're going to do on vacation, it's more obedience that we want everything to kind of fall in line. We teach our kids things so that they can be at a certain standard or place, and everything has a routine. And just like God wants us to be obedient and read the Bible and go to church and do everything that He's supposed to do, and when we fall out of that, then everything's kind of whack.
You know, I hadn't thought about it that way, but in a lot of ways it does boil down to obedience, doesn't it? And that sounds like the opposite of freedom, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It does. It feels like, but when we make the choice to be obedient to God, we are the most free that we've ever been in our lives.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because when we make the choice to be obedient to God, we cease being slaves to our sin, which holds us truly in bondage. Absolutely. All right, before we move on from this, Pat said that we are in control of our choices. What other things do we have control over? Because we don't have control over much. I think it was Ron said we have control over about this much. So is there anything else besides our choices we have control over?
How we react to the outcomes?
Excellent. That's what I was thinking too. How we react or our attitude towards what happens, that is 100% correct. We may not be in control of everything that happens in our lives, but we have control over how we will choose to react to it, right? I'm going to tell you a story, and I probably don't have time to tell it, but I'm going to tell it anyway, because this changed my life. And I've shared this in a sermon before, so some of you have heard it, but my attitude in which I approached life was when things didn't go the way I wanted them to go, because apparently I'm a control freak too. Driving down the road and I get a flat tire, or whatever, you fill in the blank, right? My attitude used to be, why does that kind of stuff always happen to me? Murphy's Law, right? It was always like, that never happens to anybody else. It always happens to me. Why doesn't it happen? It's just not fair. Well, I don't even remember exactly what happened to me, but one day I had a thought, and maybe it was just because Jesus didn't give up on me, okay? But it goes back to went back to attitude, and instead of thinking, why does this stuff always happen to me? Well, the fact of the matter is, it doesn't always happen to me. It happens to Fred too. It happens to Lisa too. Bad stuff or inconvenient stuff happens to everybody all the time. What I was failing to understand is that a lot of you had a better attitude about it all than I did. So it struck me, well, what if I really believe that God is the master of my board, to use the book's analogy, shouldn't I also then believe that when I have a flat tire and I don't get to my meeting on time, that maybe God has a purpose for that? Or when I'm, my dad always taught me, measure twice, cut once. Well, I'll do that and I'll still. And I say, my first attitude is to go, gosh, why am I so stupid? And then I think, okay, well, what now? I think, well, what is it that the Lord's trying to teach me here? Lisa, is that not true? Has my attitude not changed to that everything is actually an opportunity? I see those things that seem to be a problem as, well, what is God trying to teach me? Or who might I have opportunity to meet that I'm supposed to meet because this happened and I wasn't looking forward to it, or I wasn't expecting it? Changed my life. And really that story is the epitome of choosing to resign as master of the board and choosing to believe that in God's hands everything has a purpose. Everything does. Even the most horrific things that you can imagine, everything in the hands of God has a purpose. You just need to trust Him.
So I guess the question is,
Yeah.
how do you not let that upset you or be angry and learn how to be happy through the times that you're catching a flat tire or something?
Well, by the way, did you hear me use the word happy?
No, you didn't.
Because I'm not happy necessarily. But it goes back to what Pat was saying. I realize that I have a choice. I have what kind of attitude I'm going to bring to this stuff called life. And if I choose to believe what I say I believe, that Jesus is the master of my board, then I stop and I go, all right, I don't necessarily like the fact that I had a flat tire on the way to this job interview or whatever, but I'm choosing to believe what I say I believe, that God has a purpose and a plan for it. And it just lowers my blood pressure immediately, Chris. It really does. It changes my frustration level for life. It has went from an 80 to a 20 easily just by making that choice, that attitude. Yeah.
And it seems like if I remember when something bad happens and I remember what you're talking about, I think it also helps if I say, thank you, God. Thank you. Because you don't know what it was. He might have saved me from an accident down the road.
Amen.
Or something. Who knows?
And by the way, that's not to say that every frustrating or out of the plan thing that happens is God's plan, but God can use it.
Right.
I'm not saying God causes all the bad things in your life. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that in the hands of God, God can use this, and I'm choosing to focus on that part of it rather than on my own frustration. Right?
Yeah. You said it I can't remember what your last sentence was just a second ago, but I think it's a matter of trust. For me, I really don't want to be in control. I want somebody else to be in control, but it's a constant tug of war with me. Yes, God, you can be in control of it, and then I see stuff happening, and I go, no, I don't like that. Then I start worrying, and then I want that control back, and it's a matter of, for me, all the way, do I trust Him?
Yeah.
Thank you.
It says, if you look on top of page 41, it says, the freedom of resigning as master of the board. Do you believe that there is freedom in giving up control? Because we kind of talked around the periphery of this already, right? Do you believe that there is freedom in giving up control? Why or why not?
I have a little story about that that I think goes along with that. I organize group bus tours, and I've done it for about 22 years. And in the last 6 years, I've just prayed to God and said, God, this is your trip. You lead me how you want me to. And it is very freeing, because in the 16 years before, I kind of am a control freak, and I thought I had to have all these games planned and just everything. And I find myself at the last minute before the trip being so frustrated because my printer wouldn't print out things, or
why does this only happen to me?
Exactly. So it is kind of a freedom and obedience thing, like people said. But that has really made a difference. And now I just go and enjoy the people. And God does bring ideas to me that I can work off of something that someone in the the bus has said or suggested. It is amazing how that works.
And it's a lot more fun, isn't it?
Oh, much more.
Yeah.
And much more relaxing for me.
I remember when I was a kid, we'd go on vacations or whatever, and I didn't have to pay for it. I didn't have to worry about how we were going to get there. It was awesome because I wasn't responsible.
Right.
Well, you got to be careful how far you take that analogy, right? Because we are responsible as adults, especially. But determining what we are responsible for is the key. And we are responsible for fixing our eyes on Jesus, ultimately. If you're a Christian, these are the simple things, this much, that you're responsible for. Fix your eyes on Jesus. And choose a good attitude. And it's not just the power of positive thinking either. You get to choose, because there's always going to be stuff in your life every day. There's going to be crap in your life, and there's going to be good stuff in your life. And you get to choose that which you will focus your attention, your mind, your attitude on.
It reminds me of how people feel the first time when they accept Christ. And asking into their heart, they have a freedom feeling that may go away, but I mean at that instant.
I have a very vivid, like I've told y'all that I didn't grow up going to church, so I have a very vivid memory of that. I can almost tell you the moment it happened. And I didn't have a lightning bolt experience, but that freedom, I had a freedom bolt experience. So I remember I grew up thinking I had to be the smartest, the best athlete, the funniest, and I had to be all those things just to get people to like me. That's what I thought. And it was overwhelming to me as a teenager. I just thought, I can't keep up this charade. Sooner or later, these other kids are going to figure out that I ain't all that. And when I accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior, it was almost like this. I don't know that there was any voice in my head, but I remember him saying to me, Craig, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to perform for me to love you. I love you just the way you are. And when I heard that, or I sensed that, I thought, well, if God loves me just the way I am, I really don't have to care that much about what the rest of y'all think about me. That was the most freeing thing that ever happened to me in my life. And you know what happened? The moment I stopped caring so much about what the rest of y'all thought about me, everybody else started liking me more. Because I just kind of blossomed as a human being. I was like, you know what? I just felt like, if you like it, that's cool. If you don't, that's all right too. that was kind of, obviously that's a little extreme. That wasn't exact, but that's kind of what I began to live into. The freedom of knowing I am loved unconditionally by the Creator of the universe. Who are you?
I saw this played out just today in my classroom. I've got this little girl that likes to be in control of everything.
So it starts really early.
She says who she's going to play with, and she says who you're going to play with. And when you're 4 and 5, my job is to kind of just sit back and kind of navigate, and I don't want it to come to blows, but they have to figure out these social situations. And we've been in our classroom for all of these months. Well, today we went outside, and it's like a bunch of calves in a field. They just run, and all bets are off. And this little one who gets supreme control in the classroom had no control outside. And she was absolutely beside herself because nobody was listening to her. You know, they were running, you know, and going and doing stuff. And she just kind of stood in circles like this. She didn't know what to do with herself. And just being here tonight, listening to you, I need to have a chit chat with her tomorrow about it because I just kind of stood back and like,
And not really a reprimand though, right? It's like, sweetheart, let me help you to find joy, right? Yeah. Resigning as the master of the board will be if you lack joy, resigning as master of the board will be step one of being filled with joy. It's truth, right there. Turn to page 42 in your book. How important is it to us? How important to us is the illusion that we are in control of our lives, and why is it so important to maintain that illusion? How important is it? Very important. And why is it so important? We've kind of talked around this a little bit, but I haven't heard something from y'all yet, though, about why it's so important to kind of maintain the illusion that we have some modicum of control.
In a way, I think maybe I'm trying to fool myself.
Into what? Okay. Yeah, why though? I mean, why are you trying to fool yourself? Because you know, intellectually, you know you're really
know
not.
better, but
yeah.
I think so.
You said competition, Lisa. What do you mean by that?
It made me think about last week and all the things that we were talking about. Just maintaining that illusion is, I'm trying to be in more control than you are, or whatever, you know.
Sometimes that illusion is intended to help those around you.
What do you explain that? That's interesting.
Well, like my mother-in-law, for example. You know, she always calls with, "What do I do? How does this work? How does that work?" She does the same thing. You know, they'll stand and let somebody run over them until they ask if that's the right thing to do. So I think that's a lot of the reason people have that illusion that they need to be in control.
Yeah, absolutely. What else?
Keeping up with the lifestyle. Well, if you're trying to last week Resign, keeping score of what other people thought.
Yep.
And
keeping up with the Joneses, kind of, right?
Yeah. So if you're trying to keep an illusion of why that you are in control of everything around you, you wouldn't want the Joneses across the street to know that you're weak and they're superior than who you are.
Yeah. That illusion that is also sucks the life out of you, right? We just talked about that. How about this one, guys? It's important for us to maintain the illusion that we have control, because if we believe that, we can believe that we can avoid the bad stuff happening to us. Because of the position as pastor, I get invited into people's lives all the time. And the thing that is most upsetting to folks is when the bad stuff happens to them and it shouldn't have. We want to believe. We need to believe that if I just do this, 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 and this, then that won't happen. And then when that happens, all hell breaks loose in us and around us.
Or you can say it wasn't your fault.
Oh, yeah. That way, yeah. Well, at least it wasn't my fault, right?
But we're all responsible for the decisions that we make.
Yep.
Okay? Yep. And if we make a decision and something bad goes wrong with whatever we decided to do, then we have to be able to accept that That wasn't anybody's fault but my own. Because I made that decision, and I did that.
But what about those times when you made the right decision, though, Bob, and it turned out bad? I mean, what about the guy that eats well, worked out, and never smoked, and drops dead of a heart attack at 45?
God wanted it.
See the point I'm making, though? I mean, that you just proved that you're not the master of the board, and I've been trying to hold on to this illusion that I'm in control. If I work out and I eat right, then I'm in control of that. And then when we've made the right choices, or we think what we think to be the right choices, and then we find out we're not in control, that's what blows us up. It's better to realize that you're responsible for your own choices and ultimately make Jesus your Lord. That will free you to joy. That will free you from feeling like you have to keep up with the Joneses. That will free you from feeling the overwhelming burden of saying, what happens when I'm 65 years old and I haven't achieved my goals? Does that mean I'm a failure? If you accept Jesus as Lord, you can truly... Was it that Dallas Willard he was talking about, the guy the guy that was preaching in his church, and he was going on to the next place of church, and the guy was whistling Dixie or something. He's going, "What? How can he be so free?" Because he wasn't worried about whether or not what he did was good. He just did it for Jesus. It's a big deal. Any of you ever watched the movie Greater? You ever heard of it? Greater. I'm gonna share a little bit about that on Sunday, so I'm not gonna go into too much. But if you're interested, it's a good movie. It's a sad movie. Lisa and I watched it the other night. But it's a good movie, and it's all about what we just talked about. Did you like it, Lisa?
Yeah.
You did.
Is it on Netflix?
Yeah, I think it was Netflix. Yeah. Look at the bottom of page 43, where it says Bible exploration. There's a whole bunch of verses on the next couple of pages. We could spend some time looking at those, but let me just read this statement, because there's a couple of things I want to ask you about. Right at the bottom where it says Bible exploration, it says, "We like to think that we are in control, that when it comes to our own life and destiny, we are the master of the board. But as it often does, the Bible opens our eyes to different perspectives. It exposes the truth we rarely want to face. There is an ultimate master of the board, and we are not it." As you consider these Bible passages, and I would encourage you, if you haven't had a chance to look at them yet, I want you to do that sometime before Sunday. It says that God is shown to be the master over all earthly things. And it says, discuss how control over the earth and everything in it affects our daily lives. Do you guys know, if I were to use terms like, you know what the difference between free will and predestination is?
Mm-mm.
Free will is kind of what we've been talking about before, that we have the right, is just what it sounds like. We have the ability and the freedom to choose. Mm-hmm. Predestination would suggest that God's the one that does the choosing. And they kind of play off each other. I actually believe that they go hand in glove, and they're not opposite points. But I guess the thing that I want to ask you about, if you look at these scriptures, what is it that, what happens in the world that proves to us that God is in control? That God's the one that has planned all of this? Can you give him any examples?
All of nature.
Nature. I mean, that's right in front of us all the time, right? Nature is a perfect example. Yeah. What else?
I think if you thought, if you look back over your life from a standpoint of where you were and where you've been, and you think about certain things, God, there.
Feel this hand guiding almost the right.
Right. Yeah. God is a part of the circumstances to help you make the right decision, or gives you the opportunity to make the right decision.
So do you believe that God made you make the right decision?
Most of the time. No, most of the time, it wasn't God. I had to make the decision.
Yeah. But he provided, he like propped you in all these right ways that helped guide you in the right direction, right? Yeah.
Some of us he had to shove. So.
That's exactly right.
I find that a lot of times I don't recognize God's hand in something until after it's all over.
Yeah.
Then I look back and I say, oh, that was what he was doing.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, that what she just said, I don't know if you guys are in the habit of journaling ever. I've done it periodically throughout my life. But when I go back and I read some of the things that I've written or journaled, 20 years ago or something, I go, oh my gosh. The reflecting backwards, I'm going, I can see God's hand all over that, and especially in the difficult times where I can see it. Or I couldn't see it at the time, right?
I've been to Africa a couple of different times on mission trips, and the first one I went, I journaled the whole thing. So I'd stay up all hours of the night journaling. And it's amazing that you go back and read that, and it's amazing how you're right. God's got his hands plastered right on top of it, And at the time, I just didn't realize it.
Yeah, I think sometimes
it was just something that I was doing because I thought I had to do it, and then I read it and think, holy mackerel.
What are some other things that you can recognize that God is in control, that God is the master of the board? Lisa and I just had one happen. I don't know that she saw it or is seeing it, but we're getting ready. Our kids live out in San Diego. Our daughter lives out in San Diego. And Sunday after church, we're leaving to go out there for spring break to see them. And I just read an article just before we came in here tonight that we're flying from here to Denver and then to San Diego. Denver is getting ready to have a once-in-a-century snowstorm on Sunday. See, now that's exactly the response, right? I said, oh no, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be in control. That's a reminder, number one, that God is in control. And then we are left with the choice of believing that he is the master of the board. So I'm preaching to my wife right now.
Yeah, you sure are.
I think that disasters prove it out a lot. You see so many outcomes out of disasters that just astound you, and I've seen it a lot through the last year of all the suffering that we've gone through with this pandemic and everything, and yet you see so much good Christian love come out of it in so many different ways. Yeah. So.
To Rachel.
Yeah.
Yep.
Afterwards, we met neighbors we had never met before. I mean, God brought us together.
That's because the trees were in our yard. Sorry.
Not just those numbers.
Well, a lot of you know about my younger brother has had cancer, and many of you pancreatic, and he's going to be pushing 2 years, which is a miracle. But I have to tell you about him. When you talked about attitude, he, I don't know why he got cancer, but he's never once said to me, why do I have pancreatic cancer? But the oncologists have said, you have the best attitude we've ever seen. And
didn't she say that was one of the few things we have control over, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And his attitude, he never feels sorry for himself. He'll say, I fell on my face again and lost 95 pounds, but then he continues to go back to the oncologist. And so when he's getting his chemo, he's visiting with these other people, changing their attitudes because of his attitude toward it, you know. So it's a miracle. And we got him putting puzzles together because he's not a TV watcher and he used to read. So when they came, when was that, Francis? January, and he goes, oh, I could never do that. And I bet he's put 25 or 30 puzzles together since he's been there. And he sends every few days. But you know, so he's learned some patience. But the best thing out of it all, and he's a Christian and he says, I'm not afraid to die. But I love it that he's spreading some joy to people. That's with me, you know, that's where I'm at with this. And his attitude is so wonderful. Yeah. So he's grateful for every day that he gets.
Does anybody ever wonder why God keeps you around?
Oh, yeah.
You know, when you're talking about was it your brother that had the cancer? 22 years ago, I had liver cancer. There was only 42 people in the state of Iowa that had that same kind of cancer. There's only one person left. I was given 2 months to live, and I looked like I look now. I was in an airplane crash.
Oh my gosh.
And
not at that time.
Not at that time.
Recently.
Just recently, but I just wonder, what am I supposed to do? You know?
He ain't done with you, brother.
Well, I understand that, but and when I had my liver surgery, I laid there in bed and I said, you know, I'm ready for this. Come on, go ahead and take me. I'm ready to go. And then I got to thinking, well, I'm sitting here bargaining with God. And I thought, this isn't good. This can't end well. But it just makes you wonder at times what it is you're supposed to do. You know?
That's actually a good place to be, Bob. To be every day getting up, Lord, what is it that you want to do with me?
Well, I thank the good Lord every time I put my feet on the floor every morning. Thank you for another day.
Right at the bottom of page 47, it says, when you are intent on being master of the board, which wonderful surprises might you be missing? Everything, all those stories you just heard is an answer to that question. You see, basically what this question is asking you to do is to stop looking at the circumstance of your life as a coincidence and realize that each of those circumstances is a God incident. And it all depends on your perspective. When you view life and believe that God is the master of the board, you see God incidents. When you think you're the one that's in charge, it's just a coincidence. Which do you think is more life-giving? That's just a coincidence. Or, that's a God incident. That's a simple answer, by the way.
No such thing as a coincidence.
There is no such thing. That's what we believe, right? Amen.
Well, what we're missing is the joy that comes from a loving relationship with Christ. And the
Remember when we started this whole thing, what is the point of the game?
the loving relationship with Christ. And then by having that relationship, the relationship that you have with others becomes most enjoyable and loving as well. It just changes everything.
And to build on that, I put down that the surprises that you're going to be missing, I put down helping others on their climb to Christ.
Absolutely.
That's exactly what you just said.
Serving, yep, yep.
So,
I put down happiness, love, and joy.
Say it again. I can't hear you through your mask.
Happiness, love, and joy.
Happiness, love, and joy.
You're worried about only being in control.
That's
You're
right.
worried about your well-being, your happiness, your love, your joy.
When you're in control, you don't have time to to experience the happiness because you're all worried about everything all the time, right?
Yeah, so you don't experience anything else like, time with the kids or your family or things that's supposed to be more important in life to you. You're worried about how to control every situation.
Amen. Pat, would you look in your Bible in we're on page 50 now, by the way. I'm skipping around a bit, I'm sorry, but there's a story in Matthew chapter 16, verses 24 through 27. Pat, if you've got that, would you read that?
Page 50? Right here, Matthew 16.
Matthew 16, 24 through 27.
Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." Jesus replied, "You are blessed, Simon, son of John, because my Father in heaven has revealed this to you. You did not learn this from any human being. Now I say to you that you are Peter, which means rock, and upon this rock I will build my church, and all the powers of hell will not conquer it. And I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you forbid on earth will be forbidden in heaven, and whatever you permit on earth will be permitted in heaven."
27. I'm not sure that was the one I was looking at.
Matthew 16, is that what you?
That's what I said.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
What page were you on?
You did the right one. That wasn't the
Oh,
one.
24.
Maybe it was the John one.
That's John.
Here we go, 24. I thought you said.
Matthew 16, 24,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, sorry.
Oh.
That's okay.
Then Jesus
Oh, I
said to
see.
his disciples, "If any of you wants to be my follower, you must turn from your selfish ways, take up your cross and follow me. If you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, you will save it. And what do you benefit if you gain the whole world but lose your own soul? Is anything worth more than your soul? For the Son of Man will come with his angels in the glory of his Father and will judge all people according to their deeds."
So Jesus says in this passage, he says that give up control and you will find what?
Let's
see here.
Happiness? I don't know.
He says
You will give up your sinful love and love for Christ. What did I write down? If we give up our sinful lives and live for Christ, we have the obligation to share Christ's love and bring his joy to others. That was my paraphrase.
Yep. So look at verse 25. It says, "For whoever desires to save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake will find it." So, basically he's saying, when you give up control, you will find life. But what does that mean?
So basically, it's saying that your old life will die if you give up control.
Yes, that's exactly what it's saying. So what does that mean, though? What does this new life mean? What is this new life that he's offering us? Because, see, that's really, ultimately, the crux of the whole issue that we've been talking about tonight. What is this new life that he's offering if we will let him be master of the board? What is this new life?
That all that's important is God.
Making Jesus the center of your life, what does that look like? That's good, that's right.
Yeah.
We've been talking about it all night, by the way. I mean, bits and pieces of it. But that's really the question that this is getting at. What is this life? If we were to choose to give up resign as master of the board, what is this new life, this fullness of life that he's talking about? Because if you can leave here tonight and have a clear understanding of what that is, you will have won the game, kind of. You will have invested well by coming here tonight.
Well, wouldn't it mean to follow Jesus? I don't know how to say it. Be more in tune and follow Jesus and do what's right and help each other and love each other.
Accept the fact that Christ is providing us a pathway to eternal life. I mean, that is by accepting him as our Lord and Savior, we are on a journey. That path is leading towards our heavenly kingdom with him forever. And that is a beautiful commitment that we need to make to him, and he's already made it for us. So we just have to accept it and look forward to that.
Yeah, like in John 12th chapter, I think, I didn't come to judge the world. I came to
save.
Yeah.
I think of to love God with all your heart, and then also love people.
Amen. Amen.
I think
That
that's
sounds
what
like
God
the-
desires for us to do.
Sounds like the great commandment, doesn't it?
Well, that's the greatest commandment in the Bible of love.
That's right. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and spirit, and love your neighbors, you love yourself, right?
Like, yes,
There you got it. All right, so I'm going to point you over to page 51 because the answer, or some of the answers to the question, what is this life that we can expect when we give up, when we resign as master of the board? I would encourage you, if you haven't done it already, to read all these scriptures that are on page 51, but I'm just going to give you some highlights because we're running out of time, okay? Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Does anybody know what that it says? Trust, Lisa knows it, go ahead.
Trust in the Lord with all your heart.
Lean not
on your own
understanding.
Acknowledge him in all your ways, and he will make straight your path.
All right, so, did you hear what she just said at the end? That's one of the things that this life that Christ is offering you. Straight path. You all, I hear people, I'm just so confused, I don't know what to do, I don't know which way to turn. And he will make straight your path. How about Isaiah 40:31? Does anybody know what that verse is?
I know what it says is that there's strength to rise above life's difficulties.
Those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up on wings like eagles. They shall run and not grow weary. They shall walk and not faint. This life that God is offering you is strength to get through all the crap that life is sometimes, right?
Yeah. And I have endurance also.
Endurance. Amen. Amen. Galatians 5:22 and 23. Does anybody know what that is? It's called the fruits of the Spirit. Do you know anybody know what those fruits of the Spirit are? Say them.
Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, and faithfulness.
And self-control. That is the life that God is promising you. How about Philippians 4, 6, and 7?
Do not be anxious.
Yes, did you hear that?
No.
The Way Cool Bible says, don't worry about anything, but pray about everything, and you'll experience a joy and peace beyond all human comprehension. Joy and peace, right? Forget the anxiety and the worry. God is offering you joy and peace.
Yeah.
That's a mic drop right there, right? That is the life. Those things, right? And I really take time to read through those verses on that page, because that is the life. The things that those passages are offering is the life that God is offering you. If you will resign as master of the board, which means fabulous.
How do you get away from being a worry wart?
Don't worry about anything, but pray about everything, and you'll experience a joy and peace beyond all human understanding.
Give it to the Lord.
I understand that, but I still...
I want to be in control.
What I just said, though, that is not trusting God with your problem.
I know.
it just.
That, that passage that Philippians 4 says, don't worry about anything but pray about everything. That is the truth. I mean, it takes no more energy to pray than it does. In fact, it takes less energy to pray than it does to worry.
Water.
So you just make the choice again. Make the choice to say, I'm going to pray. Every time I'm inclined to worry,
It's fine, I don't need it. I just was wondering where it was.
That is true.
The habit of bringing them with me and leaving.
Amen. Jolene, would you pray to close us up?